All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Picture this. You're out in the dusty African savanna. A honey badger, which, let's be real, is barely the size of a medium dog, locks eyes with a Cape cobra. The snake rears up, hood flared. We all know that classic display, right? Pure lethal intent. And then, boom. The strike is blindingly fast. The cobra sinks its fangs deep, injecting a payload of neurotoxins that would literally drop a full-grown lion. The badger staggers. You can see its movements getting sluggish, and then it collapses in the dirt. It looks completely lifeless. Right next to the snake it was just battling. The venom won. Or so it seems. But then, a couple of hours later, under the brutal sun, the badger just stirs. It literally shakes its head, gets to its feet like it's waking up from a quick nap, and proceeds to eat the very snake that just delivered a fatal bite.
I mean, it's an unbelievable scene, right? And it leaves us with this massive, glaring biological puzzle. How exactly do you survive a death sentence? How on earth does an animal this small just shrug off enough venom to kill 10 adult humans? Now, for years, people just assumed the honey badger was this indestructible force of nature. But the actual truth? It's far more elegant than any internet legend. What we're really looking at here is an absolute masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, a biological superpower that completely rewrites the rules of predator and prey.
You know, you've probably seen the honey badger don't care memes. They're everywhere. And they promote this really common myth that these guys have absolute total immunity, like venom just magically bounces off them. But science tells a completely different and honestly a way more fascinating story. The fact is, they possess a highly specific, targeted biological resistance. If a honey badger takes a truly massive dose of venom from a huge snake, yeah, it can still die. But it has evolved this intricate molecular defense system that allows it to survive doses that, by all biological logic, should be completely lethal. So, to really understand this resistance, we first need to understand the weapon it's going up against. Cobras and mambas, they're armed with something called an alpha neurotoxin. And this isn't just your generic everyday poison, it is nature's ultimate chemical kill switch. It's explicitly designed to target the nervous system. So rather than just destroying tissue around the bite, it specifically seeks out and severs the communication between the brain and the muscles. And that leads to rapid paralysis and ultimately respiratory failure.
And the way it does this is by attacking a very specific target inside the victim's body. See, your nervous system operates using these electrical signals that have to jump across tiny little gaps between your nerve and muscle cells. They make this jump using a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Think of this messenger like a key. When it reaches the other side of the gap, it fits perfectly into a cellular lock called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, or NACHR for short. When that key turns, the muscle moves. You breathe, you walk, you live. Simple enough, right? Well, here's where the lethal sequence kicks in with terrifying precision. The snake's alpha neurotoxin has evolved over millions of years to perfectly mimic that exact chemical key. So your brain sends out the normal messenger, but the toxin is faster. It gets there first, jams itself right into the receptor lock, and absolutely refuses to let go. The brain's signal is sent, but the muscle never gets the memo. The result? Total paralysis. And this, right here, is exactly how a cobra effortlessly kills animals 10 times its size. Okay, so let's bring it back to our collapsed honey badger out in the savannah. Why the heck does it wake up? If this venom is a master key designed to jam the exact receptors that keep a mammal breathing, how does the badger defeat this cellular paralysis while literally everything else dies? For the longest time, scientists thought, oh, maybe it's just a super fast-acting immune system pumping out antibodies. But antibodies take time to build up, and venom does its dirty work in minutes, so that didn't add up. The real answer, which scientists only discovered by actually sequencing the badger's DNA, is so much more profound. It's not hiding in the immune system at all. It is hard-coded directly into the animal's genetic blueprint. As the researchers put it, the secret is a tiny change in a precise location. Basically, over millions of years of just constantly getting bitten by snakes, the honey badger's ancestors stumbled upon a microscopic genetic loophole. And that loophole acts as an invisible, life-saving molecular shield. Deep inside the badger's DNA, right in the gene that builds that cellular lock we talked about, there is a tiny mutation known as W187R. Let's break that down really quickly. A receptor is basically built out of a long chain of amino acids. At position 187 on that chain, where pretty much every other mammal on Earth has an amino acid called tryptophan, the honey badger swapped it out for a different one, called arginine. So they've slightly recut the lock. Now, it's not enough to break the lock entirely. The badger's own chemical messengers still fit perfectly, so it can still move and breathe. But it's just enough to completely change the game. Because, you see, this tiny little swap completely changes the molecular handshake. In a normal receptor, that tryptophan piece is neutrally charged, which politely allows the positively charged snake toxin to slot right in and jam the lock. But the badger's new arginine piece? It carries a positive charge. And if you've ever played with magnets, you know exactly what happens when you push two positive ends together. They repel, right? The venom actively tries to bind to the receptor, but it just slips right off. It literally can't hold on. Now, it is absolutely vital to remember that this molecular mutation buys time. It does not grant absolute comic book invulnerability. The lock is altered, sure, but a massive, overwhelming flood of venom can still cause temporary issues in the nervous system, which is exactly why we saw our honey badger pass out after that severe bite. But because the venom keeps slipping off those modified receptors, the badger's body isn't permanently paralyzed. It just stays alive long enough for its system to naturally flush the toxin out and recover. But hold on, this brings us to another really critical question. Out there in the brutal reality of the African bush, is a microscopic mutation really enough to survive? Because remember, before the venom even enters the bloodstream to test out those modified locks, the honey badger still has to survive the brutal, mechanical damage of the bite itself, the sheer, physical force of razor-sharp fangs. The genetic mutation is an incredible inner shield, but a true fortress needs outer armor too. And the badger, it possesses spectacular physical defenses. They have this coarse, unbelievably rubbery skin that can be up to 6 millimeters thick around the neck. A snake's fangs actually struggle to puncture it deeply enough to deliver a full dose of venom in the first place. And on top of that, the hide is incredibly loose. So if a predator does grab hold, the badger can physically twist around inside its own skin and deliver a completely aggressive, skull-crushing counterattack. When you pull all these elements together, you're looking at the ultimate survivor. It's not just a one-trick pony. It is a brilliant, layered defense system. The completely fearless behavioral traits mean it aggressively attacks the snake head-on. That thick, loose physical armor prevents deep envenomation. And then, if any venom actually does manage to get through, the genetic mutations repel it right at the cellular level. This perfect storm of adaptations turns one of the deadliest animals on Earth into nothing more than a viable, calorie-dense snack. I mean, this level of biological engineering is just staggering, isn't it? It really makes you wonder when you look at the broader animal kingdom. Did the honey badger figure this out all alone? Is this just a crazy one-off miracle of nature? Or is there a bigger pattern at play when animals share a habitat with deadly snakes? Well, the answer is a phenomenal example of something called convergent evolution. The honey badger is definitely not alone. Totally different species facing the exact same deadly problem actually arrived at similar biological hacks entirely independently of each other. Hedgehogs and certain species of pigs evolved variations of the exact same receptor mutation. Mongooses took a slightly different route, evolving a literal sugar molecule shield to physically block the venom at the receptor site. Evolution basically found the exact same tiny loophole across totally different branches of the tree of life. What we are really witnessing here is an ongoing, millions of years old evolutionary arms race between predator and prey. Make no mistake, this isn't a finished story. It is a dynamic, high-stakes molecular war. The snakes are constantly under intense pressure to evolve deadlier, more effective venom, while animals like the honey badger are under equal pressure to evolve stronger, more refined resistance. It's literal biological warfare playing out in real time, right on the cellular level. Now, why does this really matter to you and me? Because reverse engineering this exact biological thriller is opening some incredible new doors in human medicine. By studying how the badger's receptor repels these toxins, scientists are actively looking at creating safer, way more effective human antivenoms. But it goes even further than that, because these exact same nerve receptors are involved in pain transmission and nicotine addiction. Understanding this mutation is helping researchers design targeted pain relief drugs and even smoking cessation treatments. There's actually even early-stage oncology research looking at using modified toxins to deliver cancer treatments directly to specific cells. How wild is that? So the honey badger's armor isn't just some fun piece of wildlife trivia to share at parties. It's literally a blueprint for future medicine, hidden right there in the dirt of the savannah. It completely shifts our perspective on what's possible, which leaves us with one final, pretty exciting thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If a creature the size of a small dog holds the key to revolutionizing neurology and pharmacology, what other microscopic survival secrets are out there in the wild just waiting to be reverse engineered?